Hey guys, this is episode 24 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Itch, as well as the Kiwi lads. First of all, how are you doing?
Oh, yes, very good. At the moment, what a weekend of rugby we have seen from the quarterfinals. All of the games, for the taking, and just a wild ride of emotions for a lot of supporters throughout those quarters. Now the semi-finals, we've got two games around the corner that are taking place, including a World Cup rematch from the final of 2019. But overall, just an awesome weekend of some very competitive rugby, which I think was exactly what people wanted to see.
Yeah, no, I was blown away by, I guess, all the matches really, in all honesty, but we saw throughout this week. I mean, every quarterfinal was just outstanding. In my opinion, I think all the quarterfinals were great to watch. I mean, every single one really kind of kept you on the edge in terms of who was going to win the game, really right towards the very end. So, that's really all you can ask for as a rugby fan and people who are kind of new to the sport to see how close these games can be and just gets people more involved in sport, which is what you want overall. But let's just dive straight into the quarterfinals. I mean, we just got to talk about all four of them in deep detail here. First of all, we will talk about Wales versus Argentina. The Pumas did, they were seen as the underdog going into this one, but they've come out as not champions, but just they've come out as the winners, 29 points to 17. I was blown away because I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one game. Actually, it could be the second game because I think it's the Boks, because the Boks obviously were behind in that France game at halftime. But this is the second game where a team from behind came back to win, I believe, in this quarterfinals. And yeah, just what a great game to watch overall. I mean, again, just going over the tries quickly, and then we'll go a lot more detail. Just obviously, there was Dan Beggar who scored one within the 14 minutes for the Welsh. Kind of a 2-on-1 situation there. We had Tomo Williams, of course, scoring that one, kind of finding a gap within the space and just scoring underneath the post once more. And then, of course, for the Argentinians, who had Scavio, of course, he kind of just powered his way through and just put the ball on line quickly. And then, of course, Nicolas Sanchez with that intercept try at the very end. But yeah, just what was your take overall of the game? Because like I said, it was action-packed, a ton of tries. So what's your perspective?
Well, we knew it was going to be relatively close. And to be honest, I wouldn't have picked a 12-point split between the two
Yeah.
sides
No.
at the end of the game. But I believe that last Nicolas Sanchez interception try really sealed the deal for Los Pumas. Like you said, they were 10 points to 6 down at halftime. They're managing to fire back two late tries of Joel Scalavi and Sanchez to help Los Pumas advance. And I believe that, yes, they came in as underdogs, but I would have had the odds a lot closer. We have seen what the Pumas have been able to do throughout this rugby championship recently. They've been close in a majority of their games. This one was going to be no different. I felt like there were a few individuals who really stepped up in the contest that weren't actually the same as some of the names that we saw in their game up against the Japanese. Fukando Isa coming in for Pablo Matera. Of course, a lot of pressure on him to be able to perform, and I felt he did extremely well. Wales applying the pressure early, having a lot of running meters for Liam Williams. The chip and chase of Lewis Rees-Zammit, that seemed to be an effective tool for the Welsh, but unfortunately for them, only scoring the 2 tries, which, to be honest, they will be disappointed about. I feel like they had quite a few chances to be able to capitalise, but Argentina's defence, it held strong, and they were able to get themselves that late comeback. Joel Scalavi, 68th minute. It did take a while, similar to the game up against the English, for the Argentines to score their first try, but once they did, they made sure it was enough to get themselves the monumental win.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was one of those where when you look at the first half and second half, I mean, the Argentinians in the first half definitely defended better, I'd say, in that kind of in the opening quarter, just because they're able to kind of make sure the Welsh weren't able to kind of split the ball wide to their, kind of their lethal players there with Josh Adams and Lewis Rees-Zammit, because they were making sure that they kind of they didn't want to suck them in, essentially, and they wanted to make sure their defense was wide just so they can cover all areas. But like you said, in the second half, that's kind of where the Welsh were able to kind of break, I'd say, that Argentine defense a bit more. And yeah, that's where obviously we saw Lewis Rees-Zammit and Josh Adams kind of break the line a few times, and even Dyer at the end, of course, making that last minute, I guess, run. And I think it went to Lewis Rees-Zammit at the end, of course, and that's where I think it was Morani, if I'm not mistaken, who did that last-ditch tackle, which arguably could have saved the game really for the Argentinians when you look back at it now. But yeah, just an incredible game overall. I mean, I think it was interesting because there's a lot of decisions I'd say in this game also that came. I'm not saying they were controversial, but it's one of those like when you look back at them now, they can definitely be, I don't know, a talking point for sure. Because I mean, there's two decisions which I think, one in favor of the Welsh and obviously one in favor of the Argentinians, that you can maybe discuss in a bit more detail. The first one being, I'd say that Josh Adams kind of, I guess, not charged, but like, he kind of just stood his ground and the play went straight into it. Yeah, it's kind of like a shoulder in a way, but it's one of those where I think the referee made the right decision in that because anyway, the Argentinians had advantage at that point in time, and that's when Santiago Gutierrez kind of broke through, and they were already on advantage. So kind of through that play, obviously he lost the ball, and then that's when we saw the Adams kind of instant happen. But at the end of the day, I think it wasn't a yellow or anything, because I think it was the correct decision, because there was only a penalty all the way back, but they just moved it all the way up to where the instant happens, and obviously that allowed the Pumas to get a penalty in that same from that. So I think at the end of the day, it was probably the right decision for that call. But I do think the other way, though, when you look at the Welsh decision, that kind of went against them, was that kind of I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Lalavini. I'm not sure. But like, he kind of came into a player, I think it was Jack Morgan, who was kind of going down in the process and kind of knocked him off in the breakdown. And it's one of those, when you look back at it now, I think the referees actually explained it pretty clearly why they saw it as not a foul. So I thought that was very impressive, because even a lot of people I saw on social media was like, even as a Welsh fan, there are a lot of people saying like, I was actually pretty impressed by it. He explained it pretty clearly. So I think there's not really too much argument on that, but I can understand if people think it could have been like maybe a yellow card instant. I can understand maybe if people thought that, but I do think the referees in that case were probably right. So I was pretty happy actually with the refereeing throughout the day. And of course, Yakis Jaeger got essentially, what was it? It was his Achilles that had to go off because of like his leg.
Well, I think the Springboks coach is fine, but yeah, Jaco Piper
ended
up unfortunately with some sort of injury there. The calf muscle, he had to dodge one of the Los Pumas players who were barreling their way forward.
Yeah,
it is the first time I've seen in rugby union for quite some time that a referee has had to go off. I know that we saw it for the sevens with Jordan Way.
Sevens, yeah.
He ended up with that concussion, I think, in the end from the refereeing. So, ironically, he was actually the referee who made his way onto the assistant referee panel due to Jaco Piper's injury. But yeah, that referee change, I think, almost completely changed the way that the game was flowing.
Yeah.
And both sides had to then try and adapt, which is hard to do after starting a game with a certain way of refereeing. And then Carl Dixon, we know he's quite strict in the breakdowns and he keeps an eye on those very tightly. So the fact that they had to try and switch out and this game still ended up being as close as it was, I feel like it was an awesome way to start the quarterfinals in terms of the result, because it just showed that no matter what happens throughout this weekend, we could see some upsets. We could see underdogs winning. It was 1-0 to the Southern Hemisphere over the North and 1-0 for the underdogs in the overall of the quarterfinals.
No, exactly. It was one of those where the underdog is definitely a word that was what was used a lot, I'd say, throughout this quarterfinals. And like you said, that is definitely one of the results that made showcase that throughout this competition. But before we kind of move on to the next one, I just want to quickly just mention one last thing. I thought that try from Sanchez, like when he's intercepted that try, I was just ballistic. I was just off my feet and I was like just running around the hotel because we were watching it on the TV at the time. So I was just off my feet watching that. So just a great moment for the Pumas, and just very happy for them, of course, because I've made this. I think I've said this in the past, but the Pumas for me are like my second team in rugby. So like I've always loved watching the Pumas. So just very happy that they've been able to advance to these semifinals, and under Cheka as well, who's now taken the Pumas to the semis, which is impressive because he did, when he was in charge of the Wallabies, his Wallabies side beat the Pumas in the semis. So now to take them into the semifinal against the All Blacks, it's going to be a big occasion for them. So looking forward to that game. But again, we'll move on then towards the next one, and we have mentioned them with the All Blacks defeating the Irish 28 points to 24, a massive result in this competition as a whole. I mean, a lot of people saw this as a lot of people definitely said the Irish are going to win. I think that's, if you ask the general public in this, I think it was like you can even say like 75-25. I'd say like even like 80. If you want to even put it more, you could probably put it more. But it was definitely in favor of the Irish in winning this one, and that's not obviously a bad thing to say, obviously, because they were number one at the time. They won all their games in the group stage. And
I feel like the more you talk about it, the more it just digs that dagger
well,
into them.
it's just
You're
incredible.
You're just digging a hole.
Yeah, exactly. I was just godsmacked, like, just for what we saw in that game. I mean, just what did you think about it overall? Because obviously you must have been buzzing from that result.
I think we can safely say match of the tournament so far.
Yeah.
It was.
A lot of people are saying that France-South Africa one was match of the tournament, but I do agree that out of the two, I think because it's weird for me because I saw that game obviously in person, so I'm not going to have that same perspective compared to you. But for what I saw,
I would argue first half of South Africa versus France was the best half of rugby we've seen throughout this Rugby World Cup.
That's what I agree with.
But overall for the game, I think that New Zealand Ireland would take it just because that second half of France South Africa just didn't quite have that same flow that we saw throughout that first half. But halftime, 18 points to 17 in favour of the All Blacks was certainly a game that could have gone either way. I mean, 2 yellow cards for the All Blacks, one of Aaron Smith, one later on in the contest for Cody Taylor. They were defending it just out from their try line. Both sides' defences throughout this game just would not budge. All Blacks putting together 20-plus phases and the Irish stopping them. Then Ireland at the end of the game putting together 30-plus phases, which is something we have not seen throughout this Rugby World Cup. And that is just a credit to both sides and the way that they were able to, I guess, handle the pressure in this scenario. Both wanted to walk away with that victory. And at the end of the day, like the All Blacks, they managed to win it. I said about it after the stream. I said it during the stream. You could put these two sides playing again next week. Could be a whole different result. That is how close they are at the moment. Some brilliant performances from individuals. I got to say for the All Blacks, the game changer for them so far does seem to be Jordie Barrett's return from injury and the real impact that he is able to have. And when you look at the number 12s around the world, him versus Bundy Aki, of course, was an absolutely awesome one. You see South Africa, France, Dialendi versus Jonathan Dante. Seems to be those inside centres are one of the most important positions at the moment for all of these sides moving forward. So next week's going to be interesting. Is it going to be Shoka Barez taking on maybe Jordie Barrett in that semi-final? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, if it's anything like this game, it's going to be an absolutely thrilling one. But what about yourself? What do you think of this game in terms of how it went? Did you see anyone getting clear momentum? I think Sam Cane, in terms of players who stepped up, he certainly answered that question that we asked. Would he be able to match Josh Van den Flair? And I think this was one of the best games we have seen Sam Cane play in ages.
Yeah, I truly believe that was Sam Cane's best performance I've seen from him in an All Black jersey. And you can say that for a lot of players in this game, by the way. I mean, I before we get into the player thing, I just have to cover the game because I just thought the game on a whole was just unbelievable. I mean, when you look at the tries in this game, I mean, we first obviously had that Lester Fananku try in the 90th minute, a well-worked try, actually. They I think it was Beauden Barrett who received the ball, Mwanga, then came around kind of towards the side, created an opening, and then I believe it kind of went a chip over the top, and I think it was Beauden Barrett who caught it, if I'm not mistaken. And then from there, they kind of recycled the ball then towards the left-hand side. And there was perfect 1-2 play, obviously combination. Lester and Rico obviously in the end. Rico finding that quick pass to Lester, right back to Lester again, and just scored that try in the corner. And I thought it was a really good try. Actually, kind of opened up the match because I didn't actually think the All Blacks would be able to kind of break the Irish line, particularly from the wing, because they actually are pretty good in actually defending from a wing, similar to what we saw in that kind of from an Argentina perspective. What I said, they did well to cover from the wing for the quarter of the game, but Ireland are known for doing pretty well in covering the wings. So for the All Blacks to break them in that part of the field, it was just really impressive. And then, like you said, I mean, there was who was the next one? It was I think it was Bundy Aki, of course, who kind of powered his way through in the 27 minutes. Really just got a little bit of a sidestep and then just went straight in and just broke, I think, like 4 players in the process and just scored that try. It's one of those tries where it's a big man, number 12. It's kind of what you want to see. And Bundy Aki obviously having an incredible tournament, just continuing to do that obviously in the game and get a try there for the Irish. And then, from there, the All Blacks responded with Ona Sevilla in the 33rd minute. Really, again, a well-worked try, kind of build a lot of phases in the process. And then from there, I think the All Blacks had advantage. Passed it towards the right-hand side. I believe it was Will Jordan, or I think it was Reiko, actually. I think Reiko actually got the second assist, if I'm not mistaken. And then he passed it towards Artis Sevilla, obviously kind of a photo finish there on the end, on the right-hand corner. And yeah, Artis Sevilla just... Yeah, he was unbelievable. I'm going to talk a lot more about him because I think he deserves the biggest of all mentions throughout this game. But yeah, again, following them from that try, there was obviously Jamison Gibson Park. Before the half ended, we had his try. And it was pretty funny, actually, because it came from a set piece, of course. But the reason why I was kind of laughing that the try happened was because I could see Artis Sevilla telling Will Jordan, like, make sure to cover that gap, because they obviously know that there was a gap there. And I guess Will Jordan just didn't hear him. And, Jamison Gibson Park took advantage and just sniped around the corner and scored that try. So it was one of those where I was like, I saw the kind of communication kind of broke down. But just the All Blacks weren't able to kind of do much in that position. It was a good, well-worked try, particularly from a, number 9. That's kind of a try you go for. So, kind of a good try from him. And I believe with that, it kind of made the Irish go ahead by 1. Was it? They go by 1, or were they behind by 1 in that? I think we were behind by 1. They're behind by 1. And then from there, there was I think, what was the other try? We had
there was
Will
a
Jordan.
Penalty try for the Exactly. Well.
Exactly, there was a penalty try. I think Will Jordan's was first, and then there was a penalty try. But I know with Will Jordan's, that was, you could probably say that was the most impressive try, I'd say, throughout the game, just because it's a very clean try, and you don't get that often, particularly going against the Irish. And it came from a set piece. Mwanga kind of just found a gap. I think he did a kind of like a sidestep, really, and then came back inside and saw the two players just kind of move a bit, and then he just went straight through. And then, from there, when you have Will Jordan in right, you're going to try. So all you have to do is just pop that simple pass, and then, Will Jordan scored it within the corner. And then, like you said, there was a penalty try that the Irish got. They were really dominating that kind of set piece position, really, particularly from the lineouts. So, they were eventually going to get something from that. And then, from there, again, I guess there were a few penalties in the process. But I think the last defining moment was really Jordie Barrett holding up that ball. I think it was like the 74th minute, somewhere around there, holding that ball from that lineout, kind of lineout maul. And, just... Obviously, there was that final, moment where Whitelock obviously won the game for the All Blacks, putting his hands down, the experienced lock himself, winning the ball from the breakdown, and continuing that Irish curse down the quarterfinals. But just what a game. But like you said, from a player perspective, you've already mentioned Jordie Barrett. Would you say he was your man of the match? Because I know for me personally, Artis Sevilla I think he was clearly like the clear man of the match throughout this game. So just wanted to get your take on him, because I think, are we both in agreement there, or do you think there was another player?
I feel like Artie Savia and Sam Cane were definitely the two that were right up there for this contest. I think Artie Savia, the thing is, people expect him to have big games normally, which I feel like is something that maybe sometimes we underestimate just how good that man can be, whereas Sam Cane, going out there in a contest that he was up against it, there was a bit of history between him and a couple of the Irish players, and he went out there and pretty much said, hey, look at me, I'm making my way through to those semi-finals, and ending that winning streak of the Irish. That just shows, though, like, in terms of how important it is for these playoff games, that if you get 3 good performances in a row, you can win the Rugby World Cup. And we can see that now for Argentina. We can see that for New Zealand, England, South Africa. Whoever plays the best 2 games of rugby from here on out will be walking away as world champions. And that is the exciting factor in that regard. Like Argentina versus New Zealand, we have seen those two sides have close games in the past, which is why I believe New Zealand won't be able to change their lineup too much compared to what they did have here. Of course, their bench, we didn't really get to see a huge amount of that. No Finlay Christie making his way onto the field. No, or hardly any Damian McKenzie, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, McKenzie didn't really make an impact,
That's because he didn't make his way onto the field, unfortunately, having to stay off. Anton Leonard-Brown, I actually thought was pretty decent when he made his way off the bench. I should mention Ireland as well did not allow Jack Crowley to have the opportunity to make his way out there. So actually probably the game of the World Cup so far that has had the most players not put onto the field. Because...
but didn't Sexton come off? I thought Sexton
I think that might have been if he did, it would have been for Jimmy O'Brien, I guess.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Because, we're not seeing any... No, Sexton stayed out.
Really?
I do see. It was Mac Hansen who went off in the 56th for Jimmy.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I knew a
O'Brien.
player came off around the 50th mark. I wasn't sure if it was him or yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like you said, Alexander Brown was really impressive actually coming off the bench, and they even mentioned it before he was kind of walking onto the field where they've brought him on to kind of be a defensive player in the sense and kind of win the ball and stop the kind of break down the play. And yeah, that's exactly what he did. I think he came on. Who did he come on? I think he came for Leicester, if I'm not mistaken, and then they shifted, I guess, Reiko towards the left as I expected. But just what an incredible performance the All Blacks had. Just it's one of those where when I do want to mention this because this was actually popping into my head when first watching kind of going into the game, was that I watched an interview literally I think 30 minutes before the game happened, and it was with Richie McCall, and I think it was with gosh, what's his name? It's on NZ Plus. Like they have this whole thing around NZ Plus and kind of Rugby Pass. And there's I think he was a scrum half in the. I can't really remember his name.
Scrum half in the past.
Blonde hair.
Andy Ellis. No.
Andy Ellis. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, was
Ellis.
it?
I think it's Ellis. Yeah. I think that's it. I think it's Andy Ellis. I think it must be it. But essentially, they had a quick interview, and Ellis essentially asked Richie like, what do you like? How do you know like who's going to win this game, and just how do you know who's going to win this game, and just what do you think who's going to win the game? That's kind of what he asked, and he just said, "Look, the way I can tell who's going to win the game is in the opening minute, and just tell who is the team with kind of the progressive play, but also who's the team ready to give it their all." That's kind of what he said, and just from that opening minute, and looking back, looking at the opening minute, I was like, yeah, the All Blacks were that team. They really were the team that kind of showed it very early on that they were kind of ready for this game. And particularly that 20 minutes, I'd say, the opening 20, they really just had everything. It was all the All Blacks. They won the ball from the breakdown a lot of times. It was like through Otis Villa, Sam Cane, like you mentioned. Like a lot of these players stepped up in big moments, and that's what allowed the All Blacks just continue that pressure. And I think they went up like 17 points up? Like it was just. It was ridiculous, like the scoreline, and then of course the Irish kind of came back into it and made it very interesting, of course, at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, fair play to the All Blacks. They were just fantastic, and they really just kind of shut up all the critics really, from a individual but also group, just as a team. So just fair play. I was just amazed to what we saw in that game. I mean, what about yourself? Was there anything more you want to mention from that game?
I'm just thinking about McCaw's, I guess, logic, and that would mean that France should have beaten the Springboks in their games, seeing as they were the better side throughout those very early stages. But I guess in games that are so close, though, it is one that can go down to the wire, as we've seen throughout these quarterfinals, how it can be a momentum shifter.
Yeah.
But overall, like the Irish, I saw people in the comments saying that they were humiliated in this game, or they were getting a hiding, but I feel like that is nowhere near what we have seen there. Looking at this contest, like there's nothing to be ashamed about for the Irish, because if they put together a couple more phases at the end, perhaps they could have been walking towards that semi-final. They put on a show that shows exactly why they were ranked number one in the world for so long. Of course, with these recent games, it has changed the world rankings quite drastically, but
I actually haven't looked.
Yeah, I believe at the moment the Boks are back to number one, AB's number two, as the way that it sits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not too sure how high Argentina pounce up, but I'd assume that they'd move up at least one or two with that win over the Welsh.
But Wales, like, when I can look at this right now, actually, just while we're talking. Like, I think Wales were above Argentina,
Wales were
right?
seventh, and Argentina were eighth. So I'd assume Argentina would get that little bit of a leapfrog. England beating Fiji doesn't do too much for them, although they were sixth ranked, so that might boost them enough so that the Argentines don't overtake them, perhaps. But yeah, it will be intriguing to see how high some of these sides can get. Definitely if there is an upset in the semi-finals. We could actually see, theoretically, England, Argentina coming as underdogs for those semi-final fixtures. So we could actually see, if they win those games, the possibility of one of those two sides in the top four in the world rankings by the end of this Rugby World Cup.
Is that the way it would work? Like where the teams now who are in the semifinals would be the Finnish top 4?
No, not normally, but I believe the
Yeah.
World Cup, someone mentioned it's double points in terms of your boosting that you can get in the World Cup rankings, which is why the Springboks, after their successful Rugby World Cup campaign last time, were so much higher than everyone else. I believe it was that little bit of the extra boost that they got. I could be wrong in that statement. I just trust what I see from people, and normally people,
Exactly, yeah.
they try and tell me the truth, but they throw in a few curveballs along the way.
Fair enough. But yeah, look, going past that game, again, the next and third quarterfinal that we saw throughout this week was England versus Fiji. English were victorious, 30 points to 24. I mean, it's one of those where going into it, yes, English were definitely the favorites out of the two. That's not really surprising to say, but it was one of those where I think a lot of people definitely thought the Fijians could definitely surprise them and kind of make the game close or even get a last minute win. It was really that's how people thought about this. It wasn't like where Fiji were going to control the game or England. We all knew were going to control the game from the very start. It was really just more of how Fiji would break that down because they're one of the best teams in the world at just playing loose rugby, and that's really a counter, you could say, to what England normally play with. So that's what I think was just the most enjoyable bit about this game. Because, I mean, just going over the tries quickly, I mean, we had Tungalang in the 14-minute scoring that try, a pretty good try from him, I'd say, overall. We had then Joe Marchand, who then got one on the left side of the post, kind of a few phases in and just kind of busting his way through a few players, then just kind of slashed that ball down. And then we had Mata then kind of got a try for himself. It was really good. It was actually a really good try because it came out of I'm not saying it came out of nowhere, but it was one of those where like the way it worked was that they went down towards the left-hand side and then a quick pass just from, I think it was Frank Lamani, and then Mata just burst his way through past like a few players and just slammed the ball down just on the try line. So that was kind of a cool moment for him because he's been one of those players. I think he's had an underrated tournament, I'd say.
Yep.
When you're looking at all the eights, I'd say in this competition. But yeah, I mean, we also had that again. I think there was the rest of it with the tries in that half because again, it was really just more penalties that we had from Owen Farrell. I think we had like 3, I think, for the English in that first half. So that kind of allowed them to kind of be in a good position to kind of. I think the halftime score was like 21 points to 10. So it looked pretty kind of out of reach, I'd say, for the Fijians at that point in time. But again, the Fijians kind of struck back, and they got 2 tries of their own. I think it was like in a space of like 5 minutes. I think it was. It was like Ravi, I believe, got like one in the 64th minute, and then it was Butio. I think no, am I wrong in saying that? Was he the one who got it?
Villamone Botitu, next try.
Botitu. He was the one who got it. Yeah, in the 68th minute, and then from there. It opened the game up because they leveled the score with that, and then it just made it like, really who got the next points, kind of what we all thought was going to win the game. And of course, the English did get that penalty, which allowed them to kind of be a bit more secure with 27-24. Then I think it was like a goal line. Oh no, actually, it came from the kickoff where they kicked it off, and Courtney Laws, like I think someone just dropped it, just allowed the Fijians like a scrum, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, could we see something much to what we saw against the Welsh, where they don't make the mistake where they pass to Samir Rada on the wing, he drops it, they can do something and make up for that kind of game back in the group stages and create that same moment, but in the favor of the Fijians this time." But unfortunately, they played obviously a few phases, and then from there, I think it was Ben Earls. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was the player who kind of stole the ball and just ran all the way down, essentially to the 22 line, which was pretty impressive. And then, from there, Fiji gave away the kind of a penalty, and Owen Farrell was able to convert that. But it was a good game overall. Like, what was your perspective of it?
Well, I think Fiji showed exactly how dangerous they can be when they are down by points, because the fact that they were able to go back and get themselves those 2 tries back to back, like they never wanted to give up in this contest. And I think that was, I guess, the perfect epitome of what the Fijians would normally do. They did struggle in their last 2 games of the group stages. They had some close games along the way. All of their games throughout this Rugby World Cup, win or lose, were separated by 7 or less points. So they're always in the hunt, which is actually an incredible stat. And I believe that would have to be the closest overall for a side that has been knocked out of this Rugby World Cup to be able to have without a losing deficit or winning of more than that 7 marks. So the Fijians, they would have loved this contest. They would have loved to get themselves over the line, but England showing their class, showing that experience. I think that Owen Farrell starting at number 10 was, of course, a huge call. It didn't look like it went too bad, and I think that was the credit of some of those men on the outside. Tuolangi and Marchand in that midfield is definitely what England should be looking at going forward. And yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with the wings. I mean, we saw a bit of Elliot Daly and Johnny May, but the question is, do they need both of them in this next game up against the Springboks, or do you add in someone like a Harry Arundel, or Henry Arundel, I should say, as the option? I kept on mixing them up between Harry and Henry throughout the live stream, but
Harry Arundel.
no, it started with an H. I think I was getting them confused with Harry Thacker, who, of course,
that's understandable, though. That's not too far of a fetch, I mean. But yeah, no, just a great game overall. Again, I would say out of all the 4 quarterfinals we watched, it was one of those where, yes, every game was kind of decided in the last kind of few minutes, but this was decided, I guess, a few minutes earlier than you could say the other quarterfinals, just because, I mean, that Argentina one, I thought, as soon as the intercept try happened, I mean, that's kind of what I think sealed the deal. I guess it was kind of similar timing. You could probably say it's similar timing for those two, but I just think that moment, because it was an intercept try, I just felt that it was like, later on in the game and kind of a last minute thing. But no,
within
just great...
7 though, within 7 going into the final moments of the game, a little bit of an attacking chance for the Fijians.
Yeah, they
had
it
gone either way.
It was one of those where I just think as soon as the penalty went for the English, I just thought it was going to be pretty difficult for the Fijians to get a try, because I think the English just it's kind of what we saw in the next game. We'll talk about with the Box France, like where all France needed to do was just get a penalty and then obviously convert it. But for the Fijians, they need to get a penalty to get a try, to get at least an advantage, something of that. So I think they can do something. But yeah, no, it was a great game to watch. Just really great. Just Fiji have been brilliant throughout this tournament, so it's just been kind of just an honor really to kind of watch them do so well throughout this, and obviously make the quarterfinals. Since like 2007, which was in France the last time they did it. So it's just been an incredible story for the Fijians. Really, it's been great watching them. But it's just really been great watching them. But again, we'll move on then towards the last quarterfinal, which was the Boks versus France. The Boks were victorious, 29 points to 28. I mean, a mind-blowing game to say the least. I was there in person. Just the atmosphere was crazy, electric. It was all over the place. The French, of course, were up for it. Singing the national anthem probably 10 times throughout the game, as you'd expect.
The words off by heart by the time you leave France.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I probably know more of the words now, I think, for Zombie, than the French national anthem, because of the times I've heard it throughout this Rugby World Cup. But yeah, no, you're definitely right. I probably have a good memory if I really had to sing it now. But no, it's the Boks as well. They were kind of just going buck up. Everyone was just up in the air, kind of like whenever they had like a scrum penalty or just anything that went in the Boks' favor. It was really kind of 50-50. It was funny as well, because the French fans behind me were like, even like just, I don't know, if they knocked on the ball, just if there was a knock on that went the Boks' way, they're like, that's a red card, that's a yellow card, like good go. It was pretty funny to see that all the fans are really into it. But no, just what was your perspective of the game? Because of course, you have a very different perspective to me. So just want to get your take on this.
I don't know whether that's a compliment or an insult, but I'll take
it. It's a good thing. It's good. So we have a different opinion here. So I want to get your take on it, just of the game.
Well, I would think overall, great free-flowing first half of rugby. Both sides scoring way more tries than we anticipated for the first about 30 or so minutes. We saw Kurtley Arendse scoring for the Boks. We saw the try, first of all, from Cyril Bailly. Who would have predicted at the start of this game France would have 3 tries and all of them would be scored by the front row? Whereas when you look at that back line and the players that they have got available, it is so surprising that they weren't quite able to cross that try line. Whereas for the Boks, a side that are known for that physicality in the fullback, their back line was firing. Colby scoring, Damien Dialindi scoring, Kurtley Arendse scoring, and then also the big man Evan Etzebeth, who did get a yellow card throughout this game as well, of course, the first for the Springboks throughout this Rugby World Cup. Yep. And they were the only team at that point who had not received one. But overall, great game to close out the quarterfinals. There were moments for both of these sides where they could have changed the game. But overall, it kind of had that free-flowing first half, and then the second half was when we got to the business end of the match. Neither side trying to make the mistake. Marnie Lebok, I thought, did very decently in the early stages, being able to nail that first kick. I'm sure that was a confidence booster for him, but it was that experience off the bench as well when the Faf de Klerk and Hondre combo did make their way onto the field. It was a great game to watch for the quarterfinals. I have to say it closed out what was a fitting best round of the Rugby World Cup so far. At the end of the day, we had 3 good games. We didn't want to have the 4th game kind of dwindle that experience and expectation. And yeah, it certainly lived up to the hype. And great game from both sides.
Yeah, I mean, like looking back at previous quarterfinals we've had in terms of the last few years, I don't think it's hard to say that this is probably one of the best quarterfinals, like 4 quarterfinals we've seen together. So it's been really just impressive overall to see with just all the games are just electric to watch, just high scoring, just really tense, and particularly in this game as well. It was one of those where it was just electric, and like you said, it really just came down towards the very end. But there were moments in it which kind of dictated the game. I mean, when you're looking back at it, I mean, like you said, the French scored literally in the first 3 minutes of the game. Sergio Bailly getting his first try on that one, and it was a good try actually because they kind of just played quick rugby there, and then I think they even got a second one. I think it was Bailly again. What was that? Was it Bailly again? He got the second one?
Mavaka, he had a tremendous game.
It was Mavaka. That's it. Dupont just a quick tap and just passed it obviously towards him in the right wing. But no, it was good rugby. And then I'm trying to think from a Bok perspective. Again, that first try through Kirby Lorenza in the 8 minutes, it was one of those weird ones where the bounce kind of fell in the favor, I'd say, for the Boks in that one. It wasn't a great try, but it was one that it just fell in the favor of the Boks. Curly Lorenza picked it up, of course, and scored from that right wing. So that kind of, it was out of all the tries we saw, I think that was the one that was kind of just a bit, it's a gimme try if you want to put it in that sense. But hey, well, as a Bok fan, we'll definitely take that. There's no denying that. But I guess that Damien Delunde one was really well worked. Again, he kind of broke the line with a bit of a sidestep in that process, and also just kind of went straight through. I mean, that even reminds me, there was a sidestep that was crazy in that Fijian game. Just now I think about it, I think it was that Mata one actually, where he did a dummy, and then he just sold I think was it Tungalangi maybe? I can't remember. I think it was Tungalangi who just fell down. He just fell down to the floor with that sidestep and he went through. But that just reminded me similar to the Damien Delunde one where he kind of just broke the line through in a similar way. But that Cheslin Kobe try. A great try. Kind of the Boks got the ball, or kind of turned over the ball. Peters at the toy, passed it towards Jesse Krill. Krill with a grubber kick towards the left-hand corner. Perfectly set up for Cheslin Kobe just to score. So it was just all the tries, and even Ed Smith one where he just stood up. It was a bit of a weird one where he couldn't be taken down. They're all just trying to get on top of it, but he's like, nope, I'm just gonna fall on and boom, score. So I was like, fair enough. But even that Cheslin Kobe. When you look back at it now, that moment where he blocked the Ramos fade, in a weird way, that could be seen as the moment that allowed the Boks to win this game. Similar to what we saw with Jordy Barrett with that stop for the Irish one. That moment defined the game really. It really could define the game if the Irish would have won it or not. That moment for the Boks is what I believe defined the game, because there wasn't a lot of opportunities in that second half, for penalties wise, that I think both teams did pretty well in converting their penalties, which they got in the second half. But yeah, I mean, that 100 Pollard kick from 52 meters, just bang on money. It was a really good half of rugby in that second. Yes, it wasn't a high scoring half to what we saw in the first half, but it was one of those where it could have gone either way. So just an incredible game to watch. But what from a player perspective, who do you think? Because again, Bongi Manami was the man of the match and they gave him the award. But do you think he was the man of the match for you, or do you think there was someone else from your perspective?
You ready for some controversy for this game, Tim?
Oh, I want to hear it.
Okay, I think there was a robbery throughout this fixture.
Oh, okay.
Now, before everyone finishes typing their comments, getting all angry, of course, I am talking about Bongi Manambi getting man of the match. In what world was he the best player on the field? I looked through at his stats. The man missed 3 tackles, only making the 10, 4 less than Jesse Kriel, who was the leading tackler for the South Africans. Bongi Manambi, he had 1 carry and he made 1 meter. He didn't win any turnovers for his side and also dropped the ball twice. How? He wouldn't have even been in the top 10 for the Springboks, but somehow gets player
I
of the
was
match.
surprised.
How does that happen?
Yeah, I think the only justification I can give is that he's like he did well. He's done well to at least replace Malcolm Marks in the. But
You can't give him the pity one if you're
like,
not Malcolm
it's
Marks,
one of those,
but
like,
you've
where
done
I
all
just,
right.
like, it's like I don't know. Like, to be fair, like if I had to give a man of the match, I mean,
He wouldn't be in the top 5 list. You'd look at Cheslin Colby, you look at Damien
I was
Dialindi
gonna say Diamond
as
Delende
another
was the
option.
one. Yeah, I think.
Mm.
I mean, from me, I'd say it's between. I wouldn't give it to Evan because he got the yellow card, but he was good
Yeah.
throughout the game. I mean, Quagga Smith was good when he came off the bench, got the turnover for the 100 Pollard conversion. I mean, yeah, I think Diamond Delende was probably the player I give. Even Jesse Krill, I thought was really good throughout this game. I mean, that center combination really was the best. Like we talked about this in the preview. Like really, like I think I discussed it. Where I mean, Dante and Feku versus Diamond Delende and Jesse Krill, like that could define the game. And I think Diamond Delende and Krill got the better of them. So I mean, that it was really good to see because again, a lot of people obviously were on about Krill being if he should be the player to go with, because again, there was Lakanyo Am who was available, for this game, but the Boks not hedged their bet, but just kind of stuck with Krill going off his previous performances in this World Cup, and it turned out to be correct. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, obviously, in the semifinal if they do revert back maybe towards Am. But again, we can discuss that a lot more in our preview. But yeah, just you still haven't told me who do you think is your man of the match? Like, if you don't think Bobby should have got it, so who do you think should have got it?
I think that, to be honest, like you said, Damien Dialindi definitely a very good shout, but I think with that charge down of Cheslin Colby, it was when you look at the scoreboard, 28 points to 29. Like that 2 extra points that the French could have got there could have been absolutely crucial for them advancing forward. He also had the most running meters out of any Springboks player, a lot more than one. And then also alongside that, he was able to get himself the try for the Boks as well. I have to say, throughout the Rugby World Cup, like player of the matches have been pretty good overall, I believe. But that one, it stumped me big time. I thought they were just interviewing him because he was like co-captain or something. But no, it was the player of the match, and I was quite shocked. But
I think. Yeah, I was gonna say like the only other player I can think in terms of the whole player of the match category where I was a bit surprised he got it was I know Gregory Ultwit got 2 player of the matches in his games, and I think the first one against the All Blacks was pretty deserved because he had a pretty good game in that one, but I think it was the second one against like the Italians where I was like, what? Like, how did he get that? Like, there was a lot of other players who I think personally I thought Matthew Jalabert was the player in that game who stood up for me for a mile. But so I mean, so you're saying Cheslin Colby was the man of the match, just to be clear for that game?
I would give it to Cheslin Colby.
Okay, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm really in between. I'd say the centers and Cheslin Colby. I think that's kind of where I'd hedge my bet towards man of the match for the Boks. But yeah, that's it. Obviously, now with this quarterfinals, again, we'll move on then towards the semis. We'll give you guys a whole kind of preview around that. Most likely, I'll be in London probably at the time because I am going to be in London for the next 2 days. But if not, I'll definitely be in Hong Kong by the time we do that preview. Either I'll be in London or Hong Kong, no matter what. But
I'll be in my lounge.
Exactly. Yeah.
How quite as exciting is it?
Exactly. Yeah, you could do it. You could do it outside, maybe on the cricket ground. You never know. Maybe that's a new location for you. But look. Besides that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure to obviously like and subscribe towards the channel, guys. If you haven't already, definitely like the video. We greatly appreciate that. Check out our respective channels. We both put a few bit of content out in the last few weeks, and the last few days in particular, involving the quarterfinals. So definitely check that out. But yeah, besides that, we'll see you guys next time.